Lonesome Report. I'm Jim Mundorf in Southwest Iowa with Shad Sullivan. We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants because he's been at the headwaters of the Bitter Creek. Dang it. You're going to make me struggle to it. Headwaters of the Bitter Creek,
That's where I'm at, dude. I'm at the
Archer
headwaters.
County, North Texas.
That's right. I'm at the headwaters of Bitter Creek in Archer County, North Texas.
Gosh, I screwed that all up. Bitter Headwater. Okay, I got to remember that. But he's been processing 200 head of cattle this afternoon, and so now it's later in the day. We're still gonna try and get this done Wednesday night.
We're still ranchers, bro.
We talk about what's going on in the news, and top story, I don't care what you think, Shad, is Independent Cattlemen's Association of Texas. That's my top story. If you haven't seen, I did a YouTube, there's a YouTube video out I did yesterday with Cooper Little, who's the executive director of that organization. They applied, which I was even surprised when I heard about this, that they applied for a booth at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, what they call the Cattle Con, which is crazy because they are pretty much con men, and then they call their convention the Cattle Con. Um, and they have a trade show, which they kind of bill as the beef industry trade show. But what it really is NCBA's trade show with all their corporate buddies like John Deere and just gigantic corporations mainly. But the Independent Cattlemen's Association of Texas, they applied to get a booth. They got approved. They were on the map of the trade show floor. They had paid all their dues. They had bought extra advertising, apparently. And here we are, I think a month away, maybe, from the convention. And they got a letter saying that because of the significant differences in policy and goals in their missions, that they are getting refunded their entire booth and they're just not allowed to have a booth at this convention. And where the real stickler is this has been a Checkoff Beef Board sponsored convention, which means all cattlemen have been paying kind of to put this event on through the Beef Checkoff. And now, those members who have paid their Checkoff dues are now being banned, not allowed to put up a booth in the convention, the trade show that they're funding. So, what
Yeah.
that kind of breaks it down, I guess. What'd you think?
I think it is, first of all, I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I applaud this. I really do applaud him for seeking a booth out and going direction, but I'm not surprised. I'm under the opinion that there needs to be a lot of, and I hate to go down this rabbit hole and this route, but I think there needs to be a lot more lawsuits because we are being forced to pay that cattle tax, that $1 checkoff. Where in some places it's $2 in order to be represented, and then they have the audacity to muzzle us and shut us up. As in my opinion, as long as we are paying into that tax, and the NCBA gets millions, how much did they get this year?
well,
Do
it's
you know?
it's usually right around 80 million. I guess we have the
Right.
smallest herd ever, so it's a smaller amount, but we have increased imports, and so who knows? I mean, I haven't added it up. We'd have to get a hold of Von Meyer, who adds it up every year. But yeah, it's usually right around 80 million.
The key is, though, that as long as we are putting our hard earned dollars into a system that they benefit from, they should not be allowed to muzzle us in any way, shape, or form. And I told 10 years ago, they blocked me from commenting. And this is the Cattlemen's Beef Board and its CBA from commenting. And I'm like, this is wrong on every level because I pay
Commenting
into
on
that
what?
on their social media. Yeah.
Oh, so you've been blocked by NCBA? I'm
Yeah.
surprised. I'm
Yeah.
still, I try to behave myself, so I don't. I mean,
Well, I
I
can
assume they're
remember
gonna block me,
whatever
but.
well, whatever I said was not that big a deal. It was 10 years ago, and I think it had to do with the checkoff. And I will tell you this: and I think I've told you this before. I'm pro checkoff. I like the checkoff, but it is so corrupt now, and this is a prime example of how corrupt it has become. But as long as they are muzzling people, I think there should be lawsuits because we are paying into that system that pays for all of that, and it's not right, Jim. That's
Right.
not
And
right.
so, and for a lot of people, and the other thing is you're pro checkoff. I think most cattle producers have been pro checkoff, even the ones that are against NCBA. But as more and more of this stuff comes out, I've been seeing stuff on Twitter today where it's like multiple people have commented, like, let's just get rid of it. Just get rid of it because it just seems like it can't be controlled. It's a corrupt, it's just
No,
like
yes,
taxes. You're forced to pay into it and there's no accountability. And when you
yes.
get that kind of a program, this is what you end up with.
We,
Um,
you're exactly right. We need to the idea of the checkoff is great. Research, promotion, and education. I love it. I think it's great. And I had a piece of literature from 1971. I was going to present on this Lonesome report today, which is really interesting. But the idea of it is great. The abuse of it is um, it's too non-transparent. It's too abusive now, and
and even
you just
just the fact that they're putting on a trade show with cattle producers dollars.
yeah,
Like, what does that do for
absolutely,
anybody?
exactly,
It's just a big
exactly.
part. It's a way for them to control the money. They use the money to get people to come to their convention and so that they can get their message out. And if somebody happens to have a message that slightly differs, I mean, that was interesting. I felt like, what'd you think of Cooper Little? I felt like he was, when he said, he never thought that they would have a problem with it. I was kind of like, I that's the biggest surprise for me is that they got approved in the first place. I think
Well,
their application probably went through the cracks and maybe some intern
yep,
in DC
yep,
or somebody just signed them up and then the higher ups finally saw it
yep,
probably on the map or something and it was like, what is this? We can't have this word
yep,
independent have anything to do with our,
yep.
I mean, that's the thing, that first word independent, that's completely against anything NCBA. They want absolute no independence, and this whole thing just kind of shows it. Um, but I'm guessing, he works in Austin for. Are you very familiar with that organization as a
I
Texan?
no, I'm not very
Yeah,
familiar with it, but I do know that they hold kind of the same values that I hold.
I met him in Nashville a couple years ago at that U.S. Cattlemen deal. I don't think he remembered me when I called him. I know he didn't remember me, but he works in Austin. He probably meets way more people than I do, but he works in Austin there at the Capitol, I think, and probably works alongside, I don't know if Texas cattle feeders and Southwest Texas cattle raisers have.
They're all they're in Fort Worth and Amarillo. I
Oh,
would say
yeah,
that
but
they don't work alongside.
okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure he's familiar with those guys and
Sure,
they
sure.
probably get along good and he's probably familiar with a lot of NCBA guys, just like a lot of people are. And they always seem like good guys, but when you get down to how the organization runs, it's just not a good organization. And that's what I think was good. I think it's opening people's eyes because to me it wasn't a surprise at all that they're booting them out of there. The surprise to me was that they let them in the first place.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I bet that application or whatever it was just slipped through the cracks. Somebody that they've hired off the street probably
Right. Some
just
secretary was like, "Yeah, we'll
yeah.
sign you up and we'll sell." I
Fair.
mean, and the amount of money because if they bought a booth plus ad space. I didn't want to get into the dollars and cents of their business, but it costs a ton of money.
Well, what do you think? What is an approachable amount? I mean,
Well, you can
uh,
look it up on their website.
can you?
It has the square footage, so it depends on your booth size, and they sell it to you by the square foot, 10 by 10 or 10 by 20. I've done some trade shows in my day, so I kind of know how it works. But and then you have to buy electrical and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot, it can vary somewhat, but just for the booth space. And to give you an idea of who's there, like John Deere buys like a 50 feet of booth space. I remember looking at a map one year. And I've
Yeah.
always been curious. That's the other thing about everybody's like, well, and I don't even know how much, how does the thing I've always asked is how does the expenses work? But that when you get into Checkoff, which I've researched this stuff for like 5 years, and NCBA too, when you get to learn about this stuff, you don't know where any of the money goes, and that's by design. Like it's not the Checkoff trade show; it's the Checkoff Beef Board, and so most cattlemen see that and they're like, "Well, that's not," they probably just kind of glance over it and no big deal. But that's solely the Checkoff B board is the Checkoff, like the check that they're ran by the Checkoff.
Correct.
And so I guess one thing when I said 80 million, NCBA doesn't get 80 million. They control my argument has always been they control the total. 80 million is the total of what's taken in by the Checkoff. And so they pay themselves, through all their ARs. I don't know what the percentages are or whatever. I don't have that in front of me, but it'd be interesting to see how that trade show works because most big, like someone who works at Progressive Farmer once told me, who worked for the magazine, said, well, Progressive Farmer makes all their money through the trade shows. It's not from any of the media outlets. It's the Progressive Farm Show. Yeah, Farm Progress Show. Is that what it's called? I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah, and like Husker Harvest Days is another one, a big one that one of these, I don't even know who puts it on, but these media companies will put on these trade shows, make a ton of money. And so I guarantee you NCBA makes a ton of money, and I would be willing to bet, I'm guessing here, I guess I should say, but that the checkoff pays for some of the costs, and then NCBA takes the profit
sure. No doubt.
because they're crooks. That's how the whole
Well,
thing works.
I don't know. There's just no transparency at all.
Yeah,
And
and that's the thing. If they want to say that that's not true, I would love to see the books. That's the
well,
thing.
you
They can
can't see
prove
them,
me
but
wrong.
you can do a FOIA request. You can do a FOIA request on them, but they will redact
Yeah.
136 pages, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So I
that's the
talked
way
to,
this government entities work.
yeah, that's what I've talked to that Lisa Zelinsky who helped write the book, A Buck Ahead,
Ed,
about the checkoff. And that's what she said. She's like, you can try to get, I'm like, how does this work? How does that work? If I try, my question was like, if I try to get this information, how hard is it going to be? She's like, impossible.
but Jim, I look back on my
Because
life.
she's an investigative journalist. Like she worked
Yeah,
in the
oh, yeah.
ag, and
She's
she's
really
tried
good.
for years and years to figure it out. She wrote a book about it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
she's. I don't know. I look back on my life and I don't remember from, let's say, 2010 backwards to 1985. I don't remember people complaining like we do about the checkoff now, and that's because the abuse has been incremental, right?
well,
And
it's a
it
it's a
apply it.
go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
We live in a different world.
We live in a different
Like
world,
so,
and
Elon
it's not
Musk
just the
just
cattle producers.
right. Elon Musk
Everybody,
just posted after the election, "You are the media now. We are the media now." And if you look back at even, I was thinking about that after this. We've talked so much about Secretary of Agriculture. Um, we had just as good as idea who was going to be as anybody.
yeah,
All these farm
yeah,
magazines came out with their lists. Everybody
yeah,
came out with their lists. And, I talked about the Thomas Massey thing because that was like a legit kind of a leak before any of them did. Um, and so because it was on Twitter and that's where it got picked up and I saw it right away. So I kind of ran with it. But the other thing is like how this whole deal worked. I got a text with a picture of that letter. We're not getting texts with pictures of letters 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I
right.
think NCBA is probably not realizing that we live in a different world now either, or they
Maybe,
wouldn't have
yeah,
sent that letter. Because how
yeah.
could you send that and that's going to get out
I
there?
know,
And
right?
because they know they're going to piss them off, and because those people are planning for that convention. Like he
Sure.
said, they had their hotel rooms booked, and so then it's more work for them. They had to know they're going to piss them off, so they had to. You would think they would think that that letter would get shared, but the way they worded the things in the letter, they didn't think that. They don't think it's like they still live in that time frame where they can just get away with everything.
Just wonder who wrote the letter.
Well, there's a name I could tell you. You want me to tell you?
You don't want to.
Lori Lidecoat. Senior Director, Trade Show and Events, National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I would just read it. While we value the contributions of diverse voices to the industry, we
Oh, but
recognize
do
that,
they? Do
yeah, I
they?
know. We recognize that significant differences between our respective policy positions and missions would potentially detract from the goals of our organization and the objectives of the event. So, I mean, if it was a straight National Cattlemen's Beef Association trade show and not the Checkoff Beef Board trade show, which is what it's been billed in the past. And that's why I said on the video, I made sure I was like, in the past, this has been sponsored by the Checkoff Beef Board. I don't know what this year's will be. Maybe they'll
I
take
bet
that
they're
off of
changing it.
there
I bet they're changing it.
because of this. But if you go to the trade show website at the bottom of that web page, Checkoff Beef Board logos on it, right next to NCBA and all the others. So, um, yeah, it's interesting.
That's further proof that they've got plenty of money coming in. I mean, to me, a trade show would be as many booths as we could sell. You know,
Yeah.
not it's all about the money.
And
And
that's where it's like they have and they could have been like, oh, we overbooked or
yeah,
whatever, but they're like,
yeah,
no, we don't agree
exactly.
with you. You're not allowed. And so
Hold
that's what's
on.
really kind of nuts. And that's what he said too. He made a good point. He was like, because he's the director of that organization, he's like, I would
Yeah,
never send out a letter like that.
exactly.
Um,
No, I thought so too. I don't
so
know. It's wild. I do know that they are so powerful that they have little fear. And I'm telling you, the small guy's gonna win one of these days.
yeah, I
And
mean,
they all
we're
everybody who's been blocked, everybody who has been shut down, just like that organization that is paying into the checkoff, they need to be sued. They need to sue them.
yeah. I mean, my goal is with all this is just get as much light on how they operate as possible. Because, like I said, I've been looking at NCBA and how they operate for 5 years. When I started this thing, I didn't have a bad thought about NCBA. I didn't know anything about them. Same with RCAF or any of them. I just was came in kind of like I explained myself. I was a hired hand, hired farmhand. That was my connection to agriculture.
Yeah.
And and so coming in, I didn't really pay that much attention to it. And then I started writing and looking into this stuff, and it's just kind of like the more you dig, the dirtier it gets.
Yeah. Well, and I know that, the beef industry isn't the only one complaining about the checkoff. I mean, there are other checkoffs that are, and that's exactly why, what bill is it? The
Off
um,
act,
off act. That's
fairness
exactly why
in
the off
farming. Yeah.
was presented. We need more oversight and transparency on the use of our tax dollars. It's not foreign. It's not a foreign idea. It's not like it's a bad thing. But man, what I'm learning in life, and my wife and I have just been talking about this, is the corruption goes so to the lowest levels. Because she's telling me, she's saying these things that, like, this is corrupt, and I'm like, there's no way that's corrupt. It's on the lowest level ever. And she's like, no, Shad, there is so much corruption. There are so many devious hearts out there, that you give a little bit of money and power and corruption ensues. And so I think that we all have to check ourselves and say, hey, what is the reason we want this done? Do we want, what's the, are you nefarious? Do you want to, get back to honesty and integrity? I do. That's what I want to do. And it might cost us something
Yeah.
down the road.
But I mean, that's where I feel like transparency is what is best thing for it.
You know what my dad always said, Jim?
Sunshine is the best disinfectant, something like that.
Well, he said that, but he told me, he said, Shad, don't ever do business with somebody that says what they don't know don't hurt them. And
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
always remembered that. He said, if they're out there spewing that what they don't know don't hurt them, that includes
Right.
you. You don't know.
Yeah.
And I always remembered that. And I have not done, I just haven't done business with people like that.
Yeah. So I guess to transition in when we're talking about corruption, I would say the biggest news story of the past week, which I think happened right when we posted this last time, was that the CEO of United Healthcare getting gunned down.
What a bad deal,
What do
right?
you
I
think?
mean, I don't know what to think about the whole thing. I know that back in the summer, President Trump got shot in the ear, and we know nothing about that shooter. Nothing.
Yeah.
And we know nothing about the investigation. None of it, right? And then this guy walks up behind the CEO at 6:45 in the morning, and he shoots him and kills him. He runs off for 3 or 4 days, and they find him in a McDonald's with all of his stuff on him. I'm like,
The whole thing is so
it's
weird.
weird. It's so weird. And
And we
why does
know
he
his
want?
life story too. It's like you said about that one guy. Like we don't know nothing. We know this guy's life. I read a whole outline on Twitter of like exactly like just a timeline of this guy's whole life, like where he was, what he was when he went to school, valedictorian, got hurt in a surfing accident, hurt his back, took ayahuasca, all this stuff. You didn't see all that?
I haven't read all
Yeah.
that.
And so, but the thing is, like, everybody's seen the video. That's the other crazy thing. Like, this guy gets shot, and it
It
seems
was
like
bad.
within hours, the whole world just watches this guy die, which is,
I know
I
it's
mean,
bad.
and you got to feel for his family and everything.
Yeah.
But the other thing is too, it's like there, this health insurance and this whole, as a father of three who deals with all this stuff and who has a terrible insurance policy, as my wife's through her school because, going back to being small business owner, farmer, rancher, you kind of don't have good access to good health insurance programs, and you end up, getting screwed over and over by these companies. So if somebody does get a little screw loose, that's who they're gonna go after. I mean, I don't get it. Like it's a
I
horror. I
don't
don't want to
know.
say I get it because it's a horrible thing. Nobody should do it. Don't condone it at all. But if you got a screw loose and you want to go after somebody, and the thing with him, they said he's had back trouble for like years and years,
Yeah.
and to where it messed his whole life up, and that's why he went on this ayahuasca drug trip and all this to just try to heal himself, and he couldn't. And so if you deal with the medical industry for much at all, I mean, and you've got
Yeah,
a
but
little
it's
bit of a screw
odd.
loose, it doesn't surprise me that you're going to go out and try to shoot
I
somebody.
know, but it's
And that
odd
sucks.
that he picked the CEO, and it's odd that he knew that there was a meeting in New York. It's odd that he picked the CEO. Why the CEO? Why didn't he pick his doctor? Why didn't he pick,
Right.
I mean, to get into that deep of the company and to wait overnight, he had to know personal things about it. I mean, this is so strange,
Well,
weird. I don't know.
I don't
It's
know. It's like those people pick the wrong. But the other thing is like, I don't think that guy that got shot was a good guy. People come out and like, oh, he was a good guy. He was a good family man and a good husband, all this stuff, which I feel like you can be a good family man, you can be a good husband, but that doesn't necessarily make you like a good person. When you're running an outfit like that, I feel like the insurance companies partnered. Well, here's an example. We went, we had to take our daughter to the ER for some reason to a hospital out of when we were out of town, and I was calling them. And when we get close to the end of the year, you can pay some hospitals. You can just pay cash. You're not going to hit your deductible. So if you pay just over the counter and it doesn't go through your insurance, you get a discount.
okay.
And so I asked them. I was like, "Can I get how much is it if I just pay it and then you don't send it through insurance?" And sometimes a pretty good discount. And they were like, "Well, by law we can't do that because we've signed a contract that we have to send all of the claims. If the person has insurance, we have to send it through the insurance." And so there, right there, it's just like if I want to go to a hospital and pay for something to happen and not send it through insurance, like I can't. It's against the law apparently to this hospital. So it's just a crooked, it's the most, besides maybe the beef checkoff and the
Well,
cattle
it's
industry,
socialized
it is
healthcare, right?
so corrupt. And it's
The
just a team
social
up against, you know, against America, just
It's
middle
against
America.
freedom. It's socialism. socialized healthcare, anything socialized does not work. It is corrupt as hell. And I use my insurance all the time, and my insurance sucks. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it
know it.
sucks. It's expensive. They force me over on Obamacare. I get zero subsidy, which is fine. I mean, I on my private insurance for two of us, I was paying $1,800 a month until January of 2023.
Well, see,
Now,
that should make us feel better.
huh?
But well, we have a deductible of, so we do a HSA and have a crazy high deductible.
Oh, mine's $10,000 now, and
Yeah.
they put me. I When I went and got new insurance, I'm like, they're like, let's go to the marketplace, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like capitalism to me. I didn't even know what that meant. And then we go to the marketplace. That's Obamacare, and they said, yeah, we can get you. And it started out at $1,200 a month. Now we're up to $1,500 a month for two for me and my son, and my deductible is $10,000. I literally go to the doctor once a month for my blood disorder, and I have some very expensive medicine that I have to take. And
Yeah.
this is draining. I spend probably $25,000 to $30,000 a year just to stay alive, and I'm like, how much longer do you want to do this? Uh, anyway,
Yeah, see, there you go. I mean, that kid, and if you've ever had back trouble, it makes you
back
crazy.
trouble is the worst. It
It
is the
makes
worst.
you crazy because everything hurts. You
Yeah,
can't move without hurting.
you can't function. I know.
So be careful out there, kids. Um, what do you got?
I don't got anything. I am in the middle of buying calves like crazy now, and they are super high. I want to tell you, Jim, compared to a year ago right now, the little three-weight heifers that I'm buying are $235 a head more than they were at this time last year. The little steers are $141 a head more than they were last year. But I will tell you this, in my lifetime, 28 years of doing this, on these little calves, I have never seen it to where the better buy of the cattle is on the steer end. Never seen it. They are buying heifers like crazy. Everybody's wanting heifers. I suppose because there's more options with heifers through the year. You know, a steer calf. You have one option with that calf, but where we need to start replacing these cows. This is what people are thinking about. The cattle are not, I don't know, down the road they're not working very well, so I don't know why there are so dadgum many people. Well, let me rephrase that, there's fewer people in the game, and I'm seeing that locally here. But man, they are wild at heart. They are going after these cattle like crazy, giving unreal amounts, $5 three-weight calves. We're getting close to it. And it's just foreign to me because it's taking so much money to do what we do. And obviously, I'm going to cut this thing down a little bit just because of the amount of money I'm risking. And so that's been, I love the challenge of it. Don't get me wrong, but it's been, I think I'm to the age where I didn't ever understand my dad at this point in his life, but he didn't want to risk a lot, and he was scared of everything. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So that's been fun, getting lots of calves in, trying to figure out how to make them work. We will do it. Lots of people doing it all over the United States. What about, do you know anything about this? I guess we better not even talk about it. It's the milk shot that everybody's talking about across the globe. I don't know much about it.
Fill me in.
Well, I don't know enough about it to know, so I don't want to talk about
What is it?
it. I don't know.
A
It's a
shot of
shot.
milk?
It's a shot that they're going to give these dairy.
Oh, the bovire or whatever?
Yep, that's it.
I thought that was a feed additive.
I don't know what it is. I want to
Yeah,
learn
feed
though.
additive to reduce methane.
Yes, exactly.
That like
Why was I thinking it was a shot? They have
well,
started
because
it.
we've talked about a shot that's going to start
Okay.
being used, I think Australia or somewhere. And but what you're talking about milk is it's mainly been given to dairy cows in, I
Yes.
think, the UK,
Yes. Correct.
maybe some Western Europe. Yeah, but there is, from what I've read, which is very little, like you, there is very little research on how this impacts anything. I mean, as far as health or the product or any of that thing, you know, what we've talked about in the past is cattle operate and produce a lot of methane because of how their bodies work. And so when you go to messing with how their bodies work, it's kind of like we live in this age where people are going to be wary of anything like that.
Well,
Understandably. Yeah.
uh, I don't know. There's a lot going on out there. Okay, what about? Are you watching all of this stuff in Syria?
I'm
Big
not
happen.
watching it. I saw what Thomas Massey said, I think in 2013 he was against what was going on. I'm not, and so no, I guess I'm not familiar enough to, if I feel like
Yeah.
I start talking about it, I'll sound like an idiot.
Well, I know Assad was their leader over there, and he's gone to Russia. And it just sounds like it could turn into a dadgum train wreck. And I
Another
don't,
one. That's what we need is
yeah,
another one.
exactly. And I saw then this morning early that President Biden has earmarked another $50 billion for a loan this time to go to Ukraine. Let's see. Let's just keep planting these trees that grow all this money. I don't know how we're doing it. The farmers and ranchers in Texas and all across the country are pushing for the Farm Act to be put into the to be passed in some way, shape,
Who's
or form.
pushing? Farm Bureau?
Farm Bureau. I see independent farmers on TikTok are pushing it. Friends of mine that farm big are sending me stuff. They're like, we got to get this through, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know where all the money's coming from, and that's why I'm confused.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's disappointing to hear. Because if you're not familiar with the Farm Act, what is $100 an acre if you have corn. It's just a payout really
It's
to
a payout
farmers.
for all of these low commodity
Yeah,
prices.
for low
Yeah,
commodity
they
prices.
are low. They are low. But if they would fix the problem and break these son of a biscuit eaters up, we could fix all this. We could get back to a really well driven supply and demand driven um, economy. But no, we're just putting more and more and more band-aids on the wound, and it's not helping. It's just not going to help. So I don't know. Hopefully, Brooke Rollins and Trump can come together, and we can all figure some things out. That I mean, I still have hope that the new Secretary of Agriculture is going to bring promise of open dialogue and new ideas instead of just the same old idea that the rich get or the big get bigger or get out. You know, Sonny Perdue, who was praising her on social media, which is fine, but I will never let people forget what he said: get big or get out, and that is not what we need to be pushing.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I'm done. I'm done. Sorry.
Well, the thing is, no. I mean, and the other worry is like last time around, Trump did not mind handing out money. So odds of that going through are pretty good, I would say, once he gets in there. Um, all right, man. You gotta take off.
No, what time is it?
5:48.
Yeah, I better get going, bro.
All right. We did it. We got another one done.
Let's keep on doing them. Let's keep everybody be sending us some info,
Yeah.
newsworthy
Send it
info.
to Shad. Send it to Shad.
Hey, I'm enjoying this Lonesome report, buddy, and I'm getting a lot of really good feedback on it. So,
We're growing. It's growing. I was looking through like page views. The first few we did, it was like 500 views, 800
yeah,
views. Yeah, now we're pretty consistent over 3,000 views, and some of them are up around 6,000. So, yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
that's great. That's great. Well, until next week, buddy.
Thanks to everyone for sharing
Amen.
and go to lonesomelands.com, click subscribe, help us keep going.
Yep, that's
See you
right.
next week.
Adios.